Welcome to the Encouragement Engineering Podcast. We help people to combat the negativity that inundates our daily lives with a positive perspective and positive action. Today's guest is Shelby Scarbrough. Our guest today has a core belief that fostering solid relationships is the key to working through every issue that humanity faces. She also believes that we all could use a little more joy in our lives, and who couldn't do that? Without civility, there is little hope of finding joy, and likewise, without joy, civility crumbles. So she embarked on a journey to bring a little bit of both back into the world. She began a mission to create her own purposeful practice of civility. Most recently, Shelby founded the Global School of Entrepreneurship to provide entrepreneurs with MBA programs that are built around them and not institutions. The signature programs are built to let entrepreneurs apply their real-world experience to the traditional MBA subject matter, so what you learn can have an immediate impact on what matters most to you in your business. So please welcome to the show, Shelby Scarbrough. Shelby, thank you so much for being here and taking the time today. Really appreciate it. That was just part of her bio. But if we can, let's have you tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. My goodness, I kind of need to have you follow me around and just introduce everywhere you go. That was great. That was fun to hear. It sounds like an out-of-body experience sometimes when you hear somebody introduce you. But yeah, I've been doing some fun things in my life, and it all kind of culminated in that book, Civility Rules. I used to work in the Reagan administration a long time ago when I was my first job out of college, and I got a chance to hang out with some very interesting sort of political celebrities, shall we say? Lots of world leaders and heads of state and heads of government and prime ministers and kings and queens and that kind of thing. And so they taught me a lot about what being a leader would be, what it looked like, what it should look like, sometimes what it shouldn't look like. Yeah. And how to treat people and how to get things done in this world. I mean, we all have the ability to what's the old thing, win friends and influence people, the Dale Carnegie philosophy. But it's also it's more about the relationship than a transactional kind of situation. So I like to look around and see whose world I can help in a positive way. That puts a smile on my face for sure.
And that's just such a refreshing message in today's society. I think, you bring up some great points with the idea of civility and, with what goes on in the news and all this other stuff of people, they don't even listen to what others say or think. It's just react. I think and that's critical, that civility, if you can help us define what civility is and how that integrates into our society.
Sure. A lot of people think of civility kind of reduced and deduced down into a situation of manners, etiquette. Well, that's part of it, but that's just one part. That's sort of the I like to say, like the cars on a bridge. The bridge is what connects us from one piece of land to another. So if the bridge is a relationship, is what connects two people together, then the cars on the bridge stays the same. In my mind's eye, I think of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I look at that Golden Gate Bridge, and it's been there a long time, and it's pretty sturdy and steady, and that's kind of civility, and that's the cars on the bridge might be considered etiquette, which is the things that change with time. Manners and things sometimes change with time, but the same kind of the basic core of a car has stayed the same for a long time. So the basic manners, the basic things we do to connect with people are sort of tried and true. And at the same time, the style sometimes changes a little bit with the time. So we're more informal as an example in our society to be. But the bigger, deeper, more important point and picture for civility is that it's based on a few concepts like trust and respect and honor and dignity and humility and courtesy. These are the things that build relationships into strong foundations and help us work with one another in a situation when we get into difficult situations, like when we don't agree with each other.
Yeah.
Those are the things we need to lean on, and then use the manners and the etiquette to help you as a tool to help us. But really, the the integral part of everything, and the humanity around it all has to do with those other 5 characteristics.
And that's great because those are things that I my parents were older. They were from that generation, like you had the opportunity to work with the Reagan staff. That generation, that World War II generation, they went through the Depression. They understood those things. There was a value about, things higher than yourself, bigger than yourself. And I think our society now seems to have forgotten that. Some have not. But great reminder for people. I really appreciate that because it brings to mind when you mentioned the Golden Gate Bridge and how this all works. It's like when you sit down with people and talk with them, that relationship that you build, that face-to-face scenario, it really makes a difference. It's not just this thing online, although this helps because of distance and previous issues with COVID, whatever. But this is kind of a form of that, sitting down with somebody at a coffee table, if not, so the technology allows us to do similar things. I've been able to do this all over the world, and that's great. Saves me plane tickets and time. I think that's a wonderful thing, is building that relationship that you tell people about. How is that, in affecting a positive change? What do you think that does for people? That relationship, does that help them build a stronger foundation to be better to people, better to themselves?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about trust and respect, and a lot of times it's kind of couched in the sense of, well, don't you trust me? Or I want to be shown respect.
Right.
And I like to put it out the other way: is, am I worthy of trust? Have I behaved in a way that's worthy of your trust? And do I show respect to you? And have I earned your respect? It's not about being given anything.
Right.
And I just believe these are maybe sound old fashioned, but they are common core values that really have transcended time for humanity. And we just are so far away from them. It's the me situation. It's what can I get out of something? The phrase, the with them, what's in it for me?
Right.
All of those things, which I get it. And we have limited time, we have limited energy, we have limited resources. And so when you're looking at things like a business decision or something like that, it tends to get pretty cut and dry. And people go, well, is this going to be good for my business? Is this going to be good for my time? Yes. Okay. It's fine to look at things that way, but really being in a giving situation and a giving mindset is what's going to transcend everything. So it doesn't mean we have to give ourselves away. It doesn't mean that we can't have reasonable boundaries around our time, space, energy, mindset, all of those kind of things around our heart, But if we close all that off and just keep it in our own little insular world, it's a pretty lonely place.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned a good one. I had to write that down, the boundaries, because so many times people think, well, when you give of your time, you give this, you get, you're giving yourself away. That's not what we're saying. You've got to have boundaries. It's okay to tell people no. I think people need to understand that as well. If it doesn't work for you, you can say that, and still enjoy that positive relationship.
Right.
I think that's a great reminder for people, because there's, so much more to a relationship than just, like you said, the transactional, whatever it may be, whether it's a conversation, a meeting, whatever it may be. There's more to it than that. And it's a great reminder for people. One of the other things that I was curious about, because there's some important things that like young entrepreneurs should know, because I know you coach them and so forth. What are some things, with the way society going at 900 miles an hour, everybody thinking they got to, like you said, one on top of the other. So you got to beat this person out, beat that person out, whatever. What are some things that young entrepreneurs need to understand, or that you can help them with in civility?
Young entrepreneurs in general, it can be a lonely game. You're out there by yourself. But in order to get someplace, to achieve something, I think we have to recognize that we need other people. So again, building that community and looking at it in terms of how can I bring some value? What do I do in my world that adds value? So if we're an entrepreneur, if we're a business owner, our product or service needs to bring value to the world, to our customer. The same thing as our own personal experience is what can we do to bring value to somebody else's life? And we can look at that through a leadership lens in the sense that if you're the boss, then how are you bringing value to your coworkers, to your employees, to your vendors, to your customers? And just having that perspective alone and answering those questions puts you in a giving mindset rather than a taking mindset. Just setting it up that way, just the paradigm of saying, what value do I bring, does my business bring to this world, to my world, even if it's a small town or whatever it happens, it doesn't matter. That will set us up for success. And that's the first step in my mind. That's one of the very first steps. Being clear on what you do and why you do it, and having a sense of purpose around it, no matter what it is, and having pride in the best sense, in the sense of again, what do you bring to people? What is it that you're helping other people accomplish? Because essentially that's what business is.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up a good point, because even, when our society moves at such a fast pace. I feel it all the time, using technology, being in technology. One of the things that people need to do is stop and take that time of looking for what is your purpose, and how can, like you said, setting up a business, how can you give the best to a customer? Because it's not about you getting the best from the customer, it's the other way around. I think that's go ahead.
I love to use the thing that drives us all insane, which is the auto operators when you call into a company, and it just drives me crazy, because those are not meant to help us. That's meant for efficiency in the company.
Yeah.
But the end result is such a negative experience.
Yeah.
And so I just try to get past it by saying that, there are things in life that we just have to deal with, and it's better to be happy about it than angry or frustrated about it. But boy, what a time and energy suck to get into one of those loops and keep 9 or 4 or 3 and having it disconnect you. And so this is when we're trying to set up efficiencies and systems as entrepreneurs. I mean, we have to look at, does it really help the customer? Who's it really helping? Who's really efficient for?
Well, and so many, I used to create those, so I fully understand. We never had ours go over 7 options, because that was, even 7 is too many. But we realized that after a while. But it's to help with that scenario of, if somebody gets to the wrong person, like you said, it's the efficiency of the company. Does that person know about it? Are they cross-trained? Could they transfer to the right department, et cetera? But that's a great point you bring up, is you have efficiencies within your business, but at the same time, that communication, that open communication across all groups, all people in the organization, so that if somebody calls, you don't need one of those, automated attendants, and everybody can answer the questions,
Yes.
whether they're new, whether they've been there 30 years, everybody has the same level of expectation of, let's take care of this person and get them to the right person so that they can be taken care of.
For sure. There's the syndrome of, it's not my job, or, they're too focused on their side that I think you're right. The best customer service people I've ever talked to may not have been able to answer my question for me, but they helped me get to the answer somehow.
Right.
And they carried out the end game, not just what their script said, and so it's definitely, but I think that comes, my attitude about that, my experience in that comes from my background as a protocol officer, where I joke that, what we do is my world was, right this way, because we talk about opening doors for people, literally and figuratively. And I got these heads of state to do, our job was to get them to do what we needed them to do, move in the places we needed them to go, and take care of business, but facilitate their ability to do their job. But we had to cue them, and we couldn't touch, no touching.
Right.
So, gestures, eye contact, with, gentle nudges, whispering, etc. I mean, it sounds funny, but these are the things that happen in the background that
Right.
you don't see the person like me. I'm the background person to get the head of state to go where they're supposed to go to get what they're supposed to do done. And we enable that for them. So that was
Right.
our job, was enabler in the positive sense, not in the negative sense, not in the negative psychological sense.
Yeah. No
But the
cattle
idea,
prods.
yeah, to to be their best and
Yes.
to take out all the noise around from what they're trying to do to make it possible for them to be their best at what they're supposed to be doing in life. And what if they're a leader of a state or a country, I mean, there's a lot of people counting on them to be efficient
Yeah.
and efficient and able to do what they're supposed to do. So my job was to help them be able to do that and take away all the things that they didn't need to worry about. I mean, that's a luxury that most of us can't afford, but it's a really great place to be.
Yeah. I bet. And that you make up, that's a great point, because there's so much that, you're helping people with so they can be best in efficiency. I often heard it said that, some of the presidents, like, well, they always wear blue suits or whatever and a certain tie. Well, that's one less thing they have to think about. Boom, there it is. That suit, that color tie, whatever.
Yeah,
Whether,
they call it branding.
yeah, exactly. Trump always wears a blue suit, red tie, white shirt. That's boom, there it is. It's done. So it's always interesting that there's those types of things that you don't think about that really do hold a lot of value, because there's other things that are going on with, what they have to be and where they have to be. So interesting with that. Well, if you can, tell us a little bit about your book. Your latest one is A Joy Journey. Tell us about that.
That's funny because it's not published yet and it
Yeah.
keeps getting made. And I keep laughing because the journey continues and it's
Yeah.
twists
Is
and
it still a joy? Yeah.
it's still a joy. And so it's really, just like civility is, I call it a practice of civility, because it's not like a light switch, you just don't turn it on and off. On the other hand, joy, you kind of can turn on and off in some ways. Basically there's these things I call joy juices, the dopamine, the serotonin, and the all of these the chemicals that we produce in our brain naturally that we can actually turn on if we want to, which helps us cope with the difficulties that life can bring to us. And so it's definitely something that we can have a mindset about, that we can put our mind to and help ourselves feel joy and look through life with a joyful lens. But it's also something that we need to pay attention to, and that goes to health and mental health and well-being, pacing ourselves, exercise, all of those kinds of things, and perspective. Looking at the world with a learner's heart, with a child's heart, and being open to the new and different things that come along in the world, and finding the joy in them. It's a fun place to be when you need a lift, you can help yourself, and life isn't always civil and it's not always joyful, but we have a lot of control over the world around us in that sense.
Right. And that's a great reminder for people. We have that control, and that's a great power. Not only for ourselves, but for others, because they're going to see you and how you react or respond to something. And when you're a little bit more on the joyful side, people start to wonder, what's up with that? What are they doing? I want some of that.
There's actually people who really hate it.
Yeah.
And
I've heard them.
I feel so bad for those people, because that would be, there's a thing called envy, and I define envy and jealousy a little differently. Jealousy sounds bad, but it's really saying, I use it when I say something like, boy, I'm so jealous that you've accomplished this or you've done that, in the sense of, I'm happy for you. And I would love to be in your shoes too. That would be great, but I don't begrudge you your victory, your joy. I'm actually paying you a compliment in a sense, because it's something that I desire too. Envy is wanting to steal somebody's joy, wanting to begrudge them something that they've achieved or that they have, whether they earned it or not, and it doesn't really matter. Envy is not the problem of the person that the envy is directed towards. It's the
Right.
poison that the person who has envy carries with them, and it's destructive, it's deadly, and it doesn't just kill joy. It really takes the life out of a human being very quickly. And to me, that's the one of the saddest things that can happen.
Yeah, and that's, a good point, because we can share, it's always interesting to me when you ask somebody, hey, how are you doing? What do you hear?
Mhm.
Oh, this hurts or that hurts or the traffic, or they instantly go to the negative.
Right.
It's like, why? I didn't ask, your dreariness or whatnot. I said, yeah, I said, how are you? But I would like to hear, I always try to say something positive when somebody asks me that. It's like, I'm awake, I'm on the green side of the grass, I'm doing great, I'm breathing, I'm, enjoying my day. But it's that mindset. And I think that's a great uh, reminder you give people of that mindset, that you can control where you're going, what you're thinking about, how you react to things. So great
You know,
job.
you said, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's something that resonates very strongly with me, because while I can't change the world technically, I mean, but I can exhibit the change that I
Yeah.
want to see, be that example, so that hopefully that'll rub off on other people. And I do believe it does. I do believe it has in my world, that there are people around me who are positively impacted by a good, strong relationship together, and that we bring joy to one another and we help each other through the tough times. And those, there's nothing more beautiful than that. It's
Yeah.
just that's loyalty and that's friendship. But we have personal responsibility in this world. We have to take responsibility for our own actions in our own lives. And one of the challenges is with that envy gene that's in there somewhere in humanity, is often I see people blaming other people when things aren't going their way. And that just makes me very sad, because that's a dead end.
Yeah.
You take
Yeah.
away your power. Women talk about taking their power back all the time. Well, if you are angry at the world and not taking responsibility for your actions, you are giving your power right out there into the universe, and it will suck it from you. It will
Yeah.
take it very willingly. So, and you'll never get it back unless you take responsibility. That's how you get your power back.
Amen. I love that Sunday sermon right there. Great. Well, Shelby, where can people find out more about you, follow you? Tell us about your website. Tell us, where they can get a hold of you and everything that you're doing.
Sure. I have a website, shelbyscarbrough.com, and you could probably spell it wrong and still get to the same place. I also have another website about my Global School of Entrepreneurship, which is gse.mba, the Global School of Entrepreneurship. So gse.mba. And that's a fun program for entrepreneurs who want to continue their education. Many entrepreneurs some of them don't have college degrees, because you hear a lot about
Right.
college dropouts who just get going on their dream. But then a lot of people are like me, and I've been an entrepreneur, but I like learning and growing. And I also like the benchmark of what's that degree say, that accredited degree that is that stamp of approval, so to speak. So we created a program for entrepreneurs that benefits them and that will benefit their company, and they can use their company kind of as their classroom,
Cool.
and do it in a
Wow.
way that, call it a new way to MBA. It's a different way for people to get through an educational process when they're entrepreneurs, because we are different animals, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's really something. Well, we'll make sure we put all this information in the show notes so people can get a hold of you, make sure they can follow you and contact you about your programs. I just want to say thank you for being a guest on the Encouragement Engineering podcast today. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate the insight. I appreciate your positiveness. So thank you for what you're doing. It's invigorating and exciting for me to hear this. So thank you.
Thanks so much. You just ignited all my joy juices. So I'm going to go out. Great rest of my day. And you too.
Great. Well, thank you, Shelby. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.